The sound of shattering glass didn't come from the window or the crystal decanter on the sideboard. It came from inside Victoria Winters. One quiet email, opened too late in a silent penthouse office, had cracked something she had spent 15 years building brick by brick. The board she had handpicked, the executives she had mentored, the empire she had grown from a rented workspace into a global force. All of it was suddenly balanced on a knife's edge. They were planning to force her out. Tonight. Soon. But even as her pulse thundered in her ears, that wasn't what made her hands tremble. What truly terrified her was the realization that for the first time in her life, losing the company wasn't the worst thing that could happen. Losing James was. Victoria stood alone, the city glowing beneath her floor-to-ceiling windows, like a kingdom she ruled, but no longer felt connected to. At 42, she was the woman business magazines called untouchable. Flawless alabaster skin, sharp cheekbones, platinum blonde hair that framed a face trained never to betray uncertainty. She had conquered boardrooms that had once laughed at her. She had crushed competitors who underestimated her. Yet tonight, wearing a black dress instead of a power suit, she felt exposed in a way no hostile takeover had ever made her feel. 6 months ago, James Parker had entered her life by accident. He had been hired to photograph Horizon Enterprises' annual report. Just another vendor, another name on her calendar. A single father, with a warm smile and tired eyes, balancing a camera bag in one hand and responsibility in the other. He wasn't supposed to matter. But then there were late nights reviewing layouts, coffee breaks that turned into conversations, and the unexpected way his daughter Emma had slipped into Victoria's guarded world, with innocent questions and quiet laughter. Somewhere between spreadsheets and school pickups, Victoria had started to feel something she had buried years ago. Hope. She stared at her reflection, applying her signature red lipstick, with fingers that betrayed her nerves. She looked like the woman who could command a room with a single glance. But behind the mirror was someone standing at a crossroads. Was she about to make the biggest mistake of her career? Or the first truly right decision of her life? She deleted the board's email without replying. Tonight she had chosen her heart. Across the city, James adjusted his tie for the third time, his reflection staring back at him with forced confidence. At 38, he still had the athletic build at turned heads, but exhaustion lived beneath the surface. Since his wife's death, life had become a careful balancing act. Grief, work, fatherhood, and the constant fear of failing the one person who mattered most. Emma. That morning, her private school had delivered an ultimatum. Pay the overdue tuition by the end of the month, or find another school. Again. The photography studio he built from scratch was doing fine on paper, but medical bills didn't care about profit margins. Emma's rare heart condition meant specialists, medications, and hospital visits that came without warning. James had learned to smile through it all, to be the steady one. But tonight, the weight felt heavier than usual. The dinner invitation from Victoria had come unexpectedly, almost impossibly. She was everything he wasn't. Wealthy, powerful, surrounded by safety nets he could only dream of. And yet, with her, he felt seen. Not as a struggling single father, or a man barely keeping it together, but as someone worthy of affection. When he walked into the restaurant, the soft lighting wrapped around them like a promise. Victoria looked up, and for a brief moment, the world narrowed to the space between them. She watched him approach, her heart stumbling in her chest. This was the man who had dismantled her carefully constructed walls without ever trying to. As they sat together, the familiar banter flowed easily, but beneath it lived unspoken tension. Victoria noticed the shadow in his eyes immediately. Her instincts, sharpened by years of negotiation and crisis management, didn't miss much. When James finally admitted the truth about Emma's school and his financial strain, something inside her clenched. She wanted to fix it, to offer help the way she always did, with resources, solutions, control. But James stopped her gently. This wasn't a transaction. This was his life, his pride, his daughter. The champagne arrived, bubbles rising like the questions neither dared to ask. Why had she really invited him? What future were they circling without naming? What Victoria didn't know was that while she sat there choosing vulnerability, betrayal was already in motion. Her trusted CFO, a man she had defended for years, was quietly feeding manipulated data to the board. To him, James wasn't a man. He was a weakness, a distraction, proof that Victoria Winters was losing her edge. Back at the table, Victoria finally spoke the truth she had rehearsed 100 times in her head. She hadn't invited James to talk business. She had invited him because she was tired of being alone. When she confessed that Emma had once asked if she was going to be her new mother, the moment cracked open something fragile and real between them. And then James revealed his own secret. The reason money was always tight, the fear that followed him everywhere, Emma's heart condition, the endless uncertainty, the life he hadn't wanted but would never trade away. Victoria didn't see burden where he saw baggage. She saw purpose. For the first time, she allowed herself to imagine a life measured not in quarterly reports, but in shared dinners, hospital waiting rooms, and small victories that didn't make headlines. When her phone buzzed with warnings of an emergency board meeting, she silenced it. For once, she chose not to run. The next morning, the ambush came exactly as expected. The boardroom was cold, calculated, and heavy with anticipation. Accusations of mismanagement, doctored numbers, and whispers of distraction filled the air. Richard Harmon, the CFO she had trusted for 7 years, delivered his performance flawlessly. Until Victoria responded, calm, prepared, unbreakable. She had suspected a move against her for months and had quietly gathered the truth. When she exposed the manipulation and the secret communications with a rival company, the room shifted. Power drained from Richard's face as security escorted him out. The vote of no confidence dissolved into unanimous support. Horizon Enterprises was still hers, but victory felt different this time. It wasn't fueled by adrenaline or ego. It was quiet, grounded. When James appeared in her office doorway later that day, Emma beside him holding flowers, something inside Victoria finally settled. This was what she had been fighting for without knowing it. She left the building holding Emma's hand, not caring who watched. The formidable CEO, human at last. That night, in James's modest kitchen, she laughed as she ruined a silk blouse making pasta sauce. Later, under the stars on his balcony, she offered help in the only way that honored them both. Connections, not charity. Respect, not control. As the city slept, Victoria turned off her phone for the first time in years. The empire would wait. She had found something rarer than success. She had found meaning. And in that quiet moment, she understood the truth she would carry forever. Strength isn't about standing alone at the top. It's about choosing who stands beside you. Love doesn't arrive when life is perfect. It arrives when you're brave enough to let it change you. If this story moved you, if it reminded you that it's never too late to choose what truly matters, please like this video, subscribe to the channel, and share it with someone who needs hope today. Wherever you're watching from, remember this. No matter how high you climb, the most important thing you'll ever build is a life worth living.